Jessie Binns, I'm very glad to say, has joined us from the National Trust and has some interesting and imaginative stuff to talk about. And we also have Stephen Threlfall to tell us about the very splendid Lake District Summer Music, which will be kicking off soon. I also will give you a bit of an update about where the actual network is at and is getting to at the moment. Yes, good to see you again too, Harriet. Yes, so a bit of sort of parish notices update on developments with the network, which are positive later on. Right, let us start with Jessie Binns, whose job title is far too long for me to remember, but it's on the first slide. So if Amy, you can pop the slides on, we'll have a bit of visual accompaniment, so it's not just talking heads. And here comes, I've just been joined by another woozle. Yes, so Jessie, Senior Programming and Partnerships Officer, as you're known to your friends. Just tell us very briefly what that means. What is your job?
That's a very good question, Chris. So as a result of all the reorganisations that the National Trust had to do following COVID, the organisation took a view that what we really wanted to do was to be working much more in the way that we'd been already piloting through the Trust New Arts project that we talked about in this network last year, where we had some Arts Council funding to do the Desire Lines project, which Rebecca Baynard ran for us, but where she was collaborating with a lot of people who were already part of this network. And I think there was a recognition that the National Trust wanted to be doing things, instead of doing everything ourselves, we wanted to be reaching out a lot more to local organisations, local creatives who are already on the doorstep and working in a much more open and collaborative way. So that's where the new job title has come from. I'm really glad about it, although it's hard to fit it on a name badge because it kind of reflects much more the way that I was already trying to work, and it means that now I feel like I've got an official stamp of approval for working in that way. So yeah, it's something I'm really excited about.
So what were you before?
Before, oh gosh, what was I before? I can't remember. I was visitor experience manager before, which felt a lot more like it was something where we were focusing on tourists, we were focusing on visitors to the area rather than about really connecting with our local communities and our neighbours. And although that wasn't necessarily true, I think that job title kind of gave it a bit of a skew.
Oh, that's great. Well, certainly what we're about to talk about is very much locally rooted, and I think people are very familiar with the idea that there are sort of outdoor theatre shows at manor houses across the National Trust estate, but this is something a bit different in various ways. Should we move on to the next slide?
Yes, please do.
Can see the intended audience.
Yeah, so this slide is here because the National Trust has fiendishly complicated rules about taking photographs of people. So please enjoy these lovely geese for a while. So I suppose one thing I should explain about my role is that I don't work for one of the houses. We have around 300 houses in the National Trust collection, but actually the National Trust started in the 19th century as a movement to protect green space and to protect green space from development and to make sure that people from wherever they lived, in whatever background, whatever level of education or money or income you had, you could access beautiful green spaces, and that they were there for everyone. So my role is working in the outdoors part of the National Trust, and the patch that I am supposed to cover on my 4 days a week stretches from Keswick down to Eskdale. So one of the problems that we have is that most of our the places that we are trying to share with people, it's really hard to do something like outdoor theatre on, because everybody can access them for free all the time, which is great. But if you suddenly want to put on a theatre performance where you want to charge tickets, that gets really complicated. Also, if we were going to do any kind of theatre like that, we would obviously want to collaborate with the people who are already doing that, rather than set up something in competition. So what I was thinking, this is a photograph of Crow Park. It's that little green buffer zone between the town of Keswick and the Lake of Derwentwater. It was given to the National Trust in 1925 in order to be that green buffer zone and to stop the town developing right up to the margins of the lake, as we've seen in so many other Lake District towns. And it's a funny kind of space, really. It feels, it's always been managed for us by graziers, so it feels like an agricultural field, but it also has this amazing view right down the lake. So that's why we focused on Crow Park for the Desire Lines project that I've already spoken about. And I think the program that I'm talking about today came from kind of two different influences. One was that we'd already been doing this work with the local community, focusing on Crow Park, what Crow Park meant to them, how they used it, how they wanted to use it in the future, what their hopes and dreams were for that place. And we had also seen over the last 2 summers a massive influx of people coming to the Lake District from lots of urban centres who were very clearly first time visitors to the countryside, who have grown up without any reference to the countryside code and what you do with gates, how you interact with sheep, all of that kind of stuff. So what we wanted to do was create a programme that could continue our links with local communities, could provide something for this entry-level audience, but we didn't have any budget. So yes, please move on to the next slide. So this is the challenge.
Creating the performance space.
Yeah, this is creating the performance space. So the problem was, without any budget, this is what we've been able to achieve this year, which is very, very kind of bare bones. It's very much on a shoestring. Fortunately, we've got an amazing team of volunteers who come and they act as our technical team. So they put up these shelters for us each Sunday, and we've been able to reach out to community music and practitioners of community music throughout Cumbria to create a programme. So every Sunday lunchtime on Crow Park, there is free live music, and it's there for everybody to enjoy. So it's a place, it's giving an opportunity for people who live and work in Keswick to come down and enjoy it. Move on to the next slide. This is Crow Park. This is the view that people get. It kind of operates on the rules of a beach rather than an outdoor kind of country park. It's yeah, definitely for the New Moon and Sixpence shop. You're absolutely right, Derek. Yeah, so it's providing something for people who live and work in Keswick. It's providing, and that is for free. It's providing something for local musicians to come and kind of showcase their talent, and it's providing something for that new to the outdoors. If you move on to the next slide.
So this has already started, hasn't it?
It's already started,
all the way through the summer.
So it started on the first Sunday in June. We're running right through to the first Sunday in September. This is local singer-songwriter Jordan Worsfold. He's hosting an open mic for us on the first Sunday of each month. If you move on to the next slide. This was a harp's eye view from the Folk Cumbria event that was there last Sunday. I've been really touched, and we feel really lucky that local community musicians have responded so positively. So if you move on to the next slide. So we've managed to programme 12 Sundays where we've got We've had community choir from Soundwave. We've got the steel band Steel Alive from Workington coming to play. We've got Cockermouth ukuleles coming to play. We've got
starring Mr. Tom Spate, it must be said.
Aha, yes, absolutely. We've got the Earth Song project, which is being run by Dave Camlin and the Wild Chorus Community Choir. They're coming to sing and perform, and it's just been a really amazing response that we've had, and I feel really, really grateful that local musicians have responded so positively. And also we've had really positive feedback from local residents who are starting to get the idea that it's there every Sunday and they can just come down nearly whatever the weather. We have had to cancel one because of strong winds and horizontal rain, but hopefully, I know that's the typical Cumbrian summer. We're hoping for not too many of those.
And Jessie, am I right in saying that anybody on this call or anybody they know, there will be opportunities for people to perform? It's not,
absolutely
open mics.
Absolutely. So the first Sunday of each month and the third Sunday of each month are being run as open mic slots with opportunities, open floor spots for anyone who wants to come down. It doesn't have to be music. You can come and read a poem. You can come and do some dance. You can come and tell a story. The floor is open for anybody who would like to share something that they're doing. So yeah, there's one this Sunday. There's one on the first Sunday of each month, and then in between time we've got these wonderful performances from Steel Alive and Cockermouth ukuleles. So yeah, I'm really, really pleased that we've been able to pull it together, and I'm really, really pleased that it seems to be working. We're running it as a pilot, as an experiment for this year. My hope is that if we can gather some positive feedback from this year, I can put a funding bid together and do something that is a little bit less on a shoestring next year. One thing, if you do come down, please bring a chair. The shoestring budget means we're not able to provide any chairs this year. So yeah, that's what's going on.
And so, I mean, you touched on your hopes for the future. Would the next step be simply kind of better resourcing this thing, or have you got your eye on other locations around your area?
Well, we're testing the water with some different locations around the patch. So we had some funding from Sport England this year, so we're able to do some free kind of games and activities days. So that's going on tour. It's starting on Crow Park, but then it's moving to Loweswater, and then it's moving out to a little patch on the Whitehaven coast around Haigh Colliery. And we'd love to do some more there. There's also, I think, the potential for doing something down at Wastwater as well. It's trying to work out where we can do things where there's already infrastructure like car parks and toilets to support it, because the last thing we want to be doing is attracting more pressure to areas. What we want to do is provide something that is a surprise and a delight for the people who are already there.
Yeah, great. And just to clarify in people's minds, it is 11 till 2 every Sunday from now until the weather improves in September.
Yeah, that's right, with the exception of the steel band who play at their church in the morning, so they only do the Sunday afternoon. So that's on the 14th of August, that's in the Sunday afternoon, but everything else is the Sunday lunchtime, that 11 till 2 slot. And I'll post in the URL to the web link to the chat, because thank you, Chris, for putting the main National Trust events page. It's fiendishly difficult to find small local events from the national page, so I'll post in the local page.
Yes, that would definitely be a point for improvement with the National Trust, to make things a bit easier to find on the online, I would have to say. Thank you. I think we've got time for a couple of questions. If anybody would like to ask Jessie a bit more about what she said and about what's planned. Rob, I saw his hand first. But
yeah, hi Jessie, well done. Really, really good to try and be brave about this kind of thing, to actually try and put something on. So what would success look like for you? You kind of like intimated at one hand you don't want to advertise things and you want people to turn up by chance, but on the other hand you want people to be there to see it. So, you know, what is success in the balance of those two things?
Oh, great question, Rob. I mean, we have advertised it, but it's always really tricky trying to get through. I think there's so much going on in the Lake District, and we have a very limited advertising budget. So I think what success would look like for us is if we started seeing the same faces coming back each week from locals, if we had people coming up wanting to perform as well, and if when we start asking the questions throughout this summer of, is this something that you'd like to see us do more of this kind of thing, if we get the answer yes, then that gives us a bit more evidence to pull a funding bid together and to try and resource this in, I don't want to say a more professional way, but on a less shoestring way next year.
That's a kind of way of saying it.
Amy.
Yeah, it was just, I was interested in what you said at the beginning, that the sort of the focus maybe with this event and maybe more generally with the National Trust was to look more at local audiences. And it's something I'm just quite interested in. I've heard a few people from tourist attractions in Carlisle say that recently, the castle and the cathedral, and I suppose with more people wanting to holiday at home or in their local county within Cumbria, is that something the National Trust is interested in just more generally in getting local communities involved?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a recognition that the National Trust founders founded us to be for everyone, and that means being for the people on our doorsteps too. And it's really important to put the work in to making sure that those connections are there and that those connections are live. And I'm really I think that's why I've been so touched that we've had such a positive response from the Community Music Network this year, because it shows that those connections are there and the appetite is there for working with the charity. Yeah.
Carolyn's put a mention in chat, and Carolyn is a musician, a fine musician, but based down south, I think. If you'd like to come off mute, Carolyn, and just explain, as you a fairly obvious point, struggling to find fuel money at the moment, so it is very much on this shoestring basis, really focused on those in the immediate area, isn't it?
Yeah.
Carolyn, yeah.
Okay, I understand that. It's just a tricky line for me because I've made my living doing this stuff for 25 years and bringing people together, and the Lakeland Fiddlers is like really Cumbrian rooted. And we have done gigs for the Trust in the past. We used to go up to Acorn Bank back in the day, and I used to do something down at Sizer when I was fit enough to do a one-woman band thing. So the Lakeland Fiddlers doesn't cost much. But, you know, because it's my work, I have to get something and people have to get the option. Most people don't take travel, but it's quite a unique community, really. But we're obviously based in the south as well. And we've just made a new record. We had 3,000 quid in an account from the CD we made in 2009. We're down to zero. And that's been a lot of work, but really worth doing. So I'll think about it. You know, there's two boys, teenagers, lovely boys in the band, and they just like going. So whether I'm around now in August, I've got a summer play scheme I'm working on. So maybe we might come up to one of the open mic things with them if they are just leap in the car with their family or something. They would love it, I'm sure.
Send the boys on their bikes.
From Kendal.
I suppose it's something for that, you know. Keswick is also a really good place for public transport links as well, which a lot of the other places in the National Trust care aren't so good for that. But I'll put my email address in the chat. But that sounds amazing, Carolyn. Yeah, congratulations on the album. Yeah,
the Happy Meeting it's called.
Okay, we look forward to that. We can flag it up. Is it released yet?
But how would you get? Well, find me on the Facebook page, Carolyn Francis and the Lakeland Fiddlers.
I'm sure we could
That's the
put
best
something
way
on
to find it.
the network
I
website.
will. It's only come back last Friday, and I'm been full on sorting loads of problems out, so I haven't done that yet. But
Okay,
definitely, I will do that. Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
Jessie's contact details are now in the chat as well, and she's pointed you at the particular bit of the vast National Trust website that is going to be most useful for this. Lovely, thank you very much, Jessie. I'm sure we could continue to chat about National Trust and culture until the geese come home, but we should move on to Lake District Summer Music because there's loads to talk about there. So thanks very much, Jessie. I hope you can stay through the rest of the call, and see you soon. Stephen Frelfall is the artistic director. I'm sure it's a complete coincidence, but he kind of arrived with the plague in a horrible piece of timing. Started to step into those shoes in 2020, I think it was. But Stephen, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to before all this.
Thanks, Chris. Hope you can hear me all okay, everybody, and lovely to see you all, and one or two faces I know, and fascinating hearing, hi George, listening to Jessie and the things you're doing up there, which is great. Yes, I thought you were starting the day by insulting a Mancunian, Chris, which is very dangerous of you, but you know, nice.
Well,
nice
as one myself, I wasn't going to do that.
Okay, you can buy the first one. Very briefly, I'm a cello player. Originally, I was at 13 years at BBC Philharmonic, and then I moved off to Kent to wander into this wonderful world of education, and then I was 24 years director of music at Cheetham School of Music in Manchester, and throughout my time there, you know, putting on concerts, bringing out opportunities, starting workshops and so forth. Outreach has become a very big thing at the school. It's a self-funded department. So that was it really. About 3 years ago, I thought one thing I'd never done is freelance, and I thought, well, maybe now's a good time to go out there, you know, much as I love the school and the kids especially. So yes, I picked a fine time to bob out into the world. But shortly after that, in that September of 2019, I was asked if maybe I'd be interested in taking over at Lake District Summer Music the following year. So I think I came into it in October 2020. So it's a bit like Hard Acts to Follow. It was established by Rena Calloway back in 1985. And it's interesting what Rena said, because originally the drive behind it was, with her role at Royal Northern College of Music, the student summer break was a very big one, and how about we do some things where there's classes for students and they can study some more during the summer, and then the concerts got added into that. So it kind of came out that way, but as you probably know, it's been a long-standing, very successful festival. Last year was a great time to start with all the COVID insecurities, be that audience or numbers or budgets and all these wonderful things. But certainly last year I felt, well, everybody's hurting. What could the festival do to connect with other organisations? So I spent a lot of time talking to schools, businesses and other arts organisations with a lot of success. One or two places I've still not got a reply from. One of them was the National Trust, yes. And then I thought, is there anybody who's doing things outdoors, etc.? But now I know who there is, so I'll drop you a line. But I looked at the festival. One of the few of the big questions that come and have been there for a while as, what is the Lake District Festival? Where does it serve? And how does it serve the region? And even within us as an organisation, there's a kind of debate about that. But one thing I thought was kind of interesting was that it didn't seem to be connecting with the wonderful landscape. You can say we're part of a UNESCO heritage site, but how much are we actually involved in the actual region? Anyway, last year it was great to get the festival through, and with split audiences we managed to survive financially out the other side. So in a way, if I tell you a little bit about the instigation for this year, that will help, because there's an advantage to it all which I found very artistically helpful. this is the 150th anniversary year of Vaughan Williams. Vaughan Williams, who has a very stuffy image and impression in many people's minds. But for many of us who have kind of played his music and learnt a bit more about him, there's a huge amount that Vaughan Williams gave to the country. He was a great believer in supporting amateur musicians as well as professional, writing things for different instrumentation groups, etc. But one of my passions, not unlike many other people, is Antarctica. And I got deeply moved by seeing Scott of the Antarctic, etc. Wonderful music of Vaughan Williams. And in my, the 5th year at Chetham's, I put together a complete Antarctica project. In fact, I hadn't planned that, but there you go. There's my little Antarctica project, which at the time I did slightly to try and bring the academic and musical sides of the school together, because I can say this now, it didn't always meet in the middle. But by talking to the British Antarctic Survey, who also, like the school, are government funded, they said, we can help out here. We can offer you things. We can give you presentations about climate. I mean, this is 2021. And I still remember this guy saying, you see, in 50 years' time, Steve, the seasons will move forward by one. This is before we taught climate change, but the students did their drama GCSE submissions on words of Captain Scott. There was art workshops and so forth. But we did something I'd conceived a long time ago, which is a narrated version of the symphony. So if you might have come across Henry V, Walton, Henry V, there's a thing called a Shakespeare scenario where you basically get Henry V in about 50 minutes with speeches interspersed with the music, sometimes over the music. So I designed this version which basically takes Scott and Armisen to the pole. And this is the version we'll do in the final concert with Peter McQueen, who may be on screen at this point. He said he might be, but Peter's going to narrate it. But it takes you in about 48 minutes through that journey. But around all of that, it said exploration, conservation, landscape. And those are the 3 buzzwords that I've used for this year. Wind back a little bit, when I talked to a dear friend of mine about this Antarctica project, he said, you need to meet Stephen Venables. I said, who's he? He's my friend down the road in Bath, and he's the first British man to climb Everest without oxygen. And I've developed this friendship with Stephen, which is why you'll see him in the festival. And we were talking about, it wouldn't be great, Stephen, because he just takes fantastic photographs when he's not climbing or sometimes falling off mountains. He's a fantastic writer, polymath, and a photographer. So he's doing a presentation in Windermere School, which is wonderful. It's great. But he's going to do some kind of periods within the talk where there'll be live music, where we've got a youngish quartet playing some music to that, putting those two things together. But he said, I want to do this new thing called Cathedrals of the Earth. I said, oh, that's wonderful. I like the sound of that. I said, is that your words? He said, no, they're by John Ruskin. And I said, well, funnily enough, somebody said to me last year, don't go to Brantwood. It's pointless doing a concert in Brantwood. So
that's what you're doing.
That's exactly. So be careful with this Mancunian spirit. But actually, one of the things I did, I got in touch with Julian, who runs the gondola, because I thought, well, park your car in Coniston, come across on the boat. We've got this fantastic accordionist called Ryan Corbett, who I heard yesterday in Buxton. He
looks about 12.
Say again?
He looks about 12.
He's about 23, but he still looks 12. Yeah, don't we wish? But he will play on the boat coming across while this wonderful violinist, not Esther, who you're looking at the moment. I'll tell you a story about her. She's going to play Bach on two separate events at Brantwood in the 7 Suite. Just big enough for about 60 people. But here's me trying to make the connections with, just going back very briefly to Cathedrals of the Earth, because this thing I'm saying about wanting to connect with people around. I mean, I'm sure I'd love to have conversations with everybody on this Zoom chat. I've been told about the Lakeland Fiddlers as well, you know, by a friend of mine called William Lloyd, who you may know. But the idea is that, well, briefly, the student program at the festival finished in 2016. It was breaking the bank. And one of the good things with the student involvement was the connection with the audience. So this year I'm trying to bring it back in a way we can manage and afford. So there are 10 students involved in that, 2 string quartets, 2 composers. And the 2 composers are each creating a piece based around Cathedrals of the Earth, based on Stephen's talk, the wonderful images of Julian Heaton Cooper, and the writings and words of Ruskin. So in a way, I've tied the arts together to try and make a connection through the festival, leading to new creativity in their debut concert, which is on the 6th of August. And being a lover of art, I've known the guy James Mayhew for a long time. Let me tell you about Esther while that slide is there. Then when you see
she's also involved with the Vaughan Williams aspect, isn't she, as well?
She is. Everybody's doing a lark singing this year, so I thought, well, let's do it a different way. Let's take the lark around the Lake District. So Esther will be the soloist. She's worn frocks like this since she's been about 14. She's a very good violin player, but she's also been a model for years. I took her to Sedbergh once to a lunchtime concert, and my company's friend said, Steve, just have a look at what's coming. I mean, she outshone all the other students in how she looked, but she's a great fiddle player, and she just knows how to use the media. But she played Lark Ascending at the Royal Albert Hall not so long ago. Anyway, Esther will play alongside my string students, and they'll start in Grasmere. They'll do Rydal Mount, where we did an event recently, Sizer Castle, which is the other National Trust place I've managed to make a link with, and over at Barrow Docks Museum. So people said, like Leo at Rydal Mount, said, how much will this cost me, Steve? I said, nothing. It's free music. It's pop-up music. There needs to be free music. There needs to be a variety of music. We need to try and draw the audience towards a festival. My challenge to myself is how many people walk past literally the festival. You know, we've got a core audience which I want to nourish and develop, but at the same time, there needs to be things that people can go to. That's why for the 2nd year running this family events at the Jetty with James Mayhew, the artist, with live music, which I'll come to in a minute. So Esther and team are going to play the Lark Ascending in 4 venues around there. And if I could mention Barrow Docks Museum, the Docks Museum I wanted to see, and I know about it, having my wife from Barrow, we know Barrow well, we've watched it change, shall we say, across the years. But had Barrow Docks Museum been somewhere else, I still like the idea of performing in a different space like that. So the fact we have an electric viola concert might shock some. It certainly shocked some on my board, but maybe a shock ain't a bad thing. It's being played by a fabulous viola player called Nick Pendlebury, who's worked with Steve Reich and so many other people. But tied into what Nick's going to do in that 1-hour concert, we've managed to do a workshop with a local school in Dalton, in actual fact. I've been there with my cello, and the second time I went with an animateur, and they've created a kind of sound picture, which Nick is going to do at the start of the concert. And because it's an electric viola, he can do a simple thing like, if you make a sound a bit like that for yourselves, fluttering of wings, he can record that by doing funny things on the viola and set it on a loop. So you can get the bird sound going on while another part of the story is created. So this little 2-3 minute story, which involves a bird hitting a glass window, which was a bit hard to recreate on a cello, but I managed. That's a little bit of something for them, because being dyed in the wool about education and outreach, I'm very keen to do that as part of the festival's brief. But you do that, the best way of doing that is by keen dialogue with the key players there, finding out what you can do, we can do, what will help, not to go on their patch. So I've talked to Daniel at Barrow Full, it's now called. I've been talking with them, but also the new lead at the Cumbria Music Hub, and nice strong connections with Westmoreland Youth Orchestra, for whom we provided a soloist for their recent concert, who's also in our festival, a fabulous oboe player called Ewan Miller. So that's
Stephen, I'm
me
just seeing there's a question in the chat that can't see the dates for the free music at Size or on the website.
It's all in one day. It's on the 4th of August. It's on the 4th of August. It should be there. I'm looking at the brochure to make sure. Yeah, if you find the matching picture of Esther in her dress, below is where the timings are. So that doesn't show you there, but it's on the website stuff, the other stuff you and I shared, Chris.
Yeah.
But I can tell you it's on the 4th of August.
Thank you.
And I say that's been helped by great chats with Becky Heaton Cooper. This is the telling. Now this is a group who do, as you can see, there's 3 ladies involved in this. They're doing a couple of shows either side of the festival, which I have to say is a bit too close proximity for me, but they came last year. So this is about Hildegard van Bingen. The whole festival starts with the National Youth Jazz Orchestra, who are fantastic. So I think what I'm hoping you can see, there's that variety within the programme to appeal to people. And I think what my task is slightly with the festival is to put things on that will entice people, but also I've got to, in a sense, earn their trust, that they trust what the festival's about and what it's trying to do. So that's the telling. What's the next slide, Chris?
I'm sorry, Stephen, this very much fits in with a focus on women musicians and composers,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Kind of helping to redress the historic imbalance, gender imbalance in classical music.
Yeah, well, it does. And in a way, what's slightly easier with that is the fact that most of the artists, when I talk to them, like the Hermes Experiment, who are fantastic, by the way, the singer who kind of spearheads the group, Eloise, she's a composer in her own right as well. But in their very eclectic program, which includes, you know, rock songs arranged for as well as medieval music, the artists are suggesting programs with female composers within them. But one of the key things for me is this year there's a composer in residence who is Cecelia Mcdowell. I missed her by a year. It was her 70th last year, but Cecelia is going to be with us all week. Obviously, we're featuring some of her works. She wrote a fabulous piece called 70 Degrees Below Zero, which is taken from Scott's Diaries, which features in the last concert. But some of her chamber works are there, one of which is a lovely piece for oboe quartet, which is about, guess what, birds. So the thread of birds is going throughout the programme. But actually, there's a plethora of music by female composers, alongside all the other things you kind of expect. And that's happily been recognised in one or two of the people organisations we've applied to for funds. So if that helps with that, Chris. This is one of the images from James Mayhew. I came across him a few years ago. He basically draws while the music happens. So the Swan of Tuonela is represented in there. Flight of the Bumblebee somewhere. The ship there is from Scheherazade. So I've been busily arranging some of these pieces for a youngish piano trio who are going to be with us for a couple of days. But we're going back again to the Jetty Museum where we did some family shows last year. So that's been important for us to work alongside Lakeland Arts in the Jetty, also providing something fresh and new that the festival hasn't done before. The next day, James will be in Grasmere. He'll sign some of his books up at the gallery. But then in the afternoon, he's going to do a workshop for children, a 1-hour workshop just along the road in their wonderful marquee that they've got there. So again, it's bringing something for the families. That the idea is for us to try and sometimes focus on a specific area. So on Monday, the 1st of August, if you go for a walk with Steve Watts, you get a reward of a piece of gingerbread. This is me getting in touch with the you-know-what gingerbread shop last year. It's not bribery, but it feels like it, I know when I say it out loud. But if you go on the walk, you get your piece of gingerbread, and hopefully you'll stay for the 11 o'clock concert where you can hear the trio playing its music, some by Cecelia, some by Bach, some fantastic virtual oboe solos with Ewan. And then you can say, well, you know, let's have some lunch and let's take the kids to the art workshop, and maybe we'll pop along to Bowness later on. I'm deliberately doing a concert in Bowness, but at 5 o'clock, to see what sort of audience we can get for that. So as with last year, when everybody experimented with durations of concerts because of COVID, I think one or two of those things have stuck. So in a way, as I've said to one or two people, I need to explore things. I'd like to program 3 festivals in quick succession to see what works best. But, you know, that's just the impatience of trying to develop the festival. But I certainly want to grow what the festival can do to help within the region. And a couple of things to say about that, then I'll draw breath in case I'm boring you to tears. One is in April, we had a string day, which is very much a come and play string day. Hello. Which was great. We had about 6 young people in there amidst about 45 people. We did Talis Fantasia and Concerto Grosso. But like last year, we've got another come and play event in Hawkshead where you can play some music along with Ewan Miller, directed by myself. Because I know a lot of amateur musicians. I work with them throughout the year. They love to be involved. They love that close proximity, and they like to play next to artists and chat and find they're just human beings like we are. So those sorts of things I want to develop across the year, but again, hand in glove with other organisations, because as somebody said, there's nothing much happening musically in the Lake, Steve, is there? Oh, wrong. This group here, and I have to confess a little bit of nepotism, if that's not the wrong word, but Anna here, the cello player, was one of the students at Cheetham School of Music, and it's great to see so many of the students out and about, building careers, having careers. This quartet do a fabulous thing. This is the same day in Hawkshead. So in Hawkshead, you can come and play in the string band in the morning. In the afternoon, you can go and hear them dissect a whole string quartet. They play it from memory. They'll sit in different parts of the church. They might play right under your nose. They'll ask you questions. And within that 1 hour framework, you'll get to know this piece and then really understand how it's put together. And then if you've not had too much for the day, you can go and hear the concert later that night in Hawkshead. So you can camp out in Hawkshead for the day. Because one of the challenges for me, and having been to the Buxton Festival a couple of times in the last couple of days, the Lake District Festival is, because of the nature of the beast, we take concerts to different places, sure, and I have ways of expanding that, but it's not so easy to have a centre. In Buxton, you can walk to all the venues, you can eat and drink wherever you like. It's one of the drawbacks, but I'm wanting to try and see if I can create a festival centre, or even something you can transport to different places where people can socialise before and after concerts, etc. And a pipe dream is to talk to other organisations to say, well, is there a cause here for a pop-up venue that could serve the region? You know, something that we could all share, which would be a bit more substantial in my mind than what I've seen that Jessie's using. But, you know, this is it. We used 2 gazebos last year, and it certainly made a kind of a centerpiece. So yeah, there's fantastic music. The quality of the music making, I'm really assured about, but I'm keen to present it in different ways. This is why you're looking at this caricature of Count Basie. You know, because it's
we've gone completely back to front, haven't we? Because we started with the final event, and this is the first one.
Yeah. You don't have to live with me, Chris. So that's the only bonus I can say. But it's you know, I'm very pleased with the opportunity to talk to you all. But there's so many interwoven things. You know, the National Youth Jazz Orchestra will be at the Coronation Hall. That's the best and probably the only venue that will house something like that. But they're stupendous. So that's brilliant. Give me another slide, or unless anybody wants to ask me a question. There's a milling throng of enthusiastic concert goers. I'm guessing, is that Ambleside? That's Ambleside from the church.
I think it's important to flag up that you've kind of embraced the opportunities that we've kind of become aware of through the pandemic of the online option, because obviously quite a lot of it was online last year, but you've maintained that this year, so it's very much kind of blended offering.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I mean, one of the key things is about the masterclasses. I mean, tiny thing about that. Last year, a group would come, or a solo person would come for a class and go away again. This year, the string quartets will have a chain of them. And if you wish to go to those, you can see their development towards their final concert and the development of the new pieces. So that's something I want to try and replicate next year. I want to see how successful this is. But it's very important to have those streamed. They're going to be live streamed this year. We've decided to do a percentage of events and all the masterclasses. It's a question of what you can afford partly as well. But since we've put the masterclasses on YouTube, the number of hits has just gone way up. But in terms of us getting hits on our website, etc., we need more of those. I was told that distinctly by the people who run Hurdy, and we met them the other week at Blackwell. But it's important to maintain that, I think. But my sense is the public have waned a bit on that, and it also goes to bookings for events. I don't know how other people find it, but I think there's a tendency, I'm told, and I think we're experiencing, of people booking late. We've got healthy bookings so far, but obviously I see the daily figures come through, and it's like there's a piano trio right near the beginning who are doing okay, but because they're not known in the country, they're not doing as well as perhaps another, I don't know, known trio. I know, hand on heart, it's going to be a fantastic concert, but it's an interesting thing about how you bring new people into the situation. I did a concert with Sheku Kenna Mason the other week in Chester Cathedral, and guess what? It was full. I mean, he's brilliant and he's wonderful and he's lovely, but it just shows you, you know. But in the Lake District,
exposure
in terms of venues, you know, if you said Sheku come and do a concert, right, you'd fill the Coronation Hall, but you know, the financial equations are always a challenge when there's not quite the volume.
I'd like to just squeeze in some questions if anybody has them. I'm keeping on the clock. Thank you so much, Steve. I mean, there's so much more we could talk about, I think. I'm genuinely absolutely thrilled by the prospect of this festival. I'm sadly going to be going away in the middle of it, so I won't catch Peter McQueen declaiming with your final Antarctic event, which looks absolutely splendid. Yes, any questions for Steve?
Chris,
yeah.
Can I say one other tiny thing, then I will shut up. The key thing I missed out with the Antarctic survey, and this was a conversation 18 months ago, said, would they be prepared to do some talks in schools? And they came back with a resounding yes. And I said, how about other places like Higham Hall, where I know George and the setup there very well. So I think at the moment there's been about 1,200 children around the region who have received a talk and demonstration from Antarctic Survey. It also happened at Higham Hall, and George very kindly hosted a 2.5-day symposium really about Vaughan Williams. So I'm using those ways to try and connect with the region. And maybe I should say this to you, Chris. There's a one-man play called Shackleton's Carpenter, which I got sorted out with a date at Kirkgate in Cockermouth. And the day I got back to the actor, he said, I've decided not to do it. But that's away. Anyway, I'm now being silent. I put the mute on.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I think it's a remarkable thing. I don't think there are that many music festivals that include mountaineers and children doing illustrations. So totally applaud the breadth.
Lumberjacks next year.
Does anybody have a question for Stephen? Do raise your hand either physically or virtually. The details, I think we've put. Oh, George, go ahead.
Hi, Stephen. Hi. Yeah, I just like to back up what Stephen said about the schools. Involvement from the arts in schools is often prohibited by the cost and everything, and it's only by combining with other events going on in the area or other opportunities, not necessarily concerts, but talks and gatherings and things, that these things can build up. But what we've found is that there is a ready market there for schools to inform their pupils and about culture, and to get, because if the youngsters don't come across aspects of culture like Stephen is talking about, and even the aspects of music and history and environment that are coming, that's so essential really these days to get over. But we've got to look for these creative opportunities all the time to create, to allow schools to have access to things, because generally schools can't afford to, buy in, talent, etc. But we need to have a steady stream. And in the main, I found up here that because of geographically where we are, it's even harder, because very often we're so reliant on the goodwill of the and vision of those people like Stephen who are trying to put things together. So I wholeheartedly applaud this very eclectic approach that Stephen's taken. I'm terribly impressed by what he's achieved so far, and I think that this is all the side of the the Lake District Summer Music Programme anyway, which the ball seems to have been taken, and Stephen, you're certainly running with it, so congratulations on that. Nice. But I think a little bit of collaboration as we go on. I mean, we're a college for adults, we're not a school, but we can see in our local area the involvement of the schools of Cockermouth School and Keswick School and that, and how they're needing these cultural touch points. And anytime we get culture in the area, if we get a trio or a duet or something in the area, or a tutor coming to the area, we always try and now look at opportunities to link with the schools to say, look, someone's coming to the area, are you interested in having some sort of link with them? We'll see what we can sort out for you. It's something that I think adds to the richness and the potential of what we're all able to do culturally.
Absolutely, thank you. And obviously linkages is what the Cumbria Arts and Culture Network is all about. So you've segued very nicely for me into a very quick roundup of where we're at with the network. As most of you are probably aware, we've now got some reasonable funding, modest, but a big leap forward, some funding over the next couple of years. We are in the process, we have now got a constitution, so that the Arts and Culture Network is no longer a kind of nebulous, kind of informal thing. It's becoming a constituted body. We're going through the laborious and painful process of becoming a charity, and also acquiring a bank account of our own. At the moment, everything's kind of handled, thank you very much, to the LEP, the local economic partnership, but we are working towards the CACN being a freestanding grown-up thing of its own, and that is rapidly approaching. And a key thing that we have said and we will be doing is providing more training and development and mentoring opportunities. Many of you have taken part in the diversity awareness sessions, for instance. So we're looking to provide a range of training and development opportunities for people at every stage of their professional and artistic development. We want to find out what it is that's wanted and needed. So next week, there will be a survey going out to ask you and everybody else what they might like or need. So please watch out for that in the newsletter. Please disseminate that as widely as possible. Genuinely, we're looking at what we can do for individual artists, professionals in other aspects of the kind of behind the scenes work in culture and heritage. So it's really important that we get as much input to that as possible so we can provide the best service possible. Something we're already doing that you should be aware of is the podcast, and the first full-length podcast is out there. You can reach it through the website. It is a wonderful thing, incorporating David Bowie and lots of other well-known Cumbrians. Yes, thank you, Amy. There's a link in the chat as well. Links in the chat to Lake District Summer Music, and to the National Trust, and contact for Jessie in there as well. Thank you so much to Jessie and Stephen for what has been an absolutely fascinating and I think inspiring morning. It's great to have these events in prospect. And I just want to mention again, Phil Hewitt, before he left, again put in chat the Unity Festival that's coming up in Carlisle this very weekend. And there we are, bringing it in on time. And I'm sure that has a very useful significance, Rob Fraser.
Can I just say something, please?
Yes, please do, Karen.
I just realised that I've got a big pile of these CDs here. This is what they look like. A Happy Meeting. It's Bofal.
Excellent.
That's a painting by one of the members that's been incorporated in the artwork. And then there's this little booklet. This is a gig we did at Ufield years ago with all the fiddles on a piano and a glass of wine. I think Jonathan Porritt was there. And then there's like a lot of detail about the tunes and the music as well inside. So it's quite a well-produced little thing. But yeah, we haven't got a proper website yet. But, you know, I'm going to put it on Bandcamp, The Happy Meeting. You'll see them around the place. And it's only just come and I'm pretty exhausted at the moment. So I haven't done that bit yet, but it will happen.
We'll watch out for it. Yeah, I'm sorry we've not been able to play any music today, but lots to talk about it. Go out and hear some in the park, Crow Park, this coming Sunday and every Sunday until September, and Lake District Summer Music from the end of July through into the first week or so of August. Thank you all very much indeed. Normal service will be resumed next week. Amy, what's Tom got lined up for next week? Do we know?
Next week, I think we've actually got the Cumbria LEP, so Local Enterprise Partnership, who managers. They manage a lot of businesses, but it's just kind of talking about, you know, the business side of arts and culture. If you're an artist and you have to make a living and you're trying to set up as a freelancer, so I'm sure she'll have Lindsay from CLEP will have some interesting stuff to say about that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amy, for keeping everything running smoothly. And huge thanks again to Stephen and Jessie. Thank you for joining us and look forward to enjoying your offerings. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great weekend.